Bought a baby monitor and accidentally caught my wife cheating in our child's room, so I got revenge by using it as evidence to win our divorce and destroying her business. I, 35M, and my wife, 33F, have been married for almost 7 years now. We met at a local fair, I asked her out, and things basically took off from there. It's been a good relationship and a good marriage, and we have our ups and downs like every other couple, but generally speaking, we have a very wholesome relationship, and I have always been very thankful for that. We weren't trying for a child for a pretty long time because we wanted to make the most of our relative youth while we still had it, but last year, we decided to change things up. My wife, let's call her Naomi, got pregnant and we had our baby at the beginning of the year. I've always wanted to have a kid, so when my daughter was born, it was genuinely the happiest moment of my entire life. There's nothing that I can say to describe it beyond that. Adjusting to parenthood is hard though, and it became pretty clear how much it ties up your life. If you don't have dependable friends or family around, it becomes really hard to have a day to yourself unless you're open to paying a nanny to take care of your kid. That was an expense that me and my wife really can't take on, so we passed on that. But anyway, it was clear that if we wanted to go out to eat at a restaurant, we would need to arrange with someone to watch the baby, and it really wasn't that easy since we don't have many family members living close by. I'm not complaining, I'm just explaining how things were. It was because of the way things were that I decided that we needed to get a baby monitor. If the baby was sleeping, as babies tend to do for very long times at a go, we could potentially go somewhere extremely close by and rush back if the baby started to stir or wake up. I know on paper, it sounds irresponsible, but honestly, not having any spontaneity was starting to weigh on us. I discussed it with my wife and she was apprehensive about us leaving the baby at home for extended periods, but I told her that we would never go hang out anywhere that was more than a 5-minute walk from our place. Ultimately, we left the decision hanging, and I expected that we were going to talk about it again at some point. Naomi works at a place of her own on the corner of our street, selling flowers and floral arrangements. She's always been a creative type and she has always loved flowers, so I basically lent her the empty store, which my uncle left to me after passing away from cancer, to use rent-free. I had no idea what I was going to do with it, and her having such a well-located store was definitely going to be to both of our benefit. She has a couple of girls who work for her, so she doesn't always go to work, but she does on most days. I work remotely, so it works perfectly for us. On one of those days that she did, I decided to buy a Wi-Fi baby monitor on Amazon on a whim. I did recognize before I purchased it that we hadn't both concluded and agreed on getting it, but I really felt like winning her over wasn't going to be some kind of big ordeal. It came the next day when she was at work again, so I set up the little camera in our baby's room. If the lights are on, it's very easy to notice it, but when the blinds are drawn or the light is off, it's not that easy to see it. The camera connects to the Wi-Fi and I can use an app on my phone to check the monitor no matter where I am, which is pretty cool. After setting it up, I went right back to work, and honestly, I somehow forgot to tell her about it when she got back. The very next day was one of those few days where I had a bunch of errands to run, and I kind of looked forward to it because it was one of the times where I was entirely free of parental duties, even if for just a few hours at a time. When I was about to leave the house, my wife begged that I take the baby along, that she was exhausted from the week and she just needed to have some time to herself. I won't lie, I was a bit bummed at that, but this wasn't the first time that she asked me to take the baby along, and I wasn't able to the last time she asked, so this time around, I agreed. I took my daughter and all of her needed things and started to run the errands for the day. I was halfway through the list of things that I was meant to do that day, and my daughter had been well behaved the entire day, so it honestly wasn't a bad day by any measure. Well, until a point. It was when I was sitting in my car eating some fast food that I had bought that I got a notification on my phone from the baby monitor app. It had detected activity, and my first thought was that my wife went into the baby's room to do something because that's the logical assumption to make. I pulled out my phone and opened the app, and I saw my wife and another man grappling in the baby's room. My heart leapt in my chest, honestly. It looked like my wife was being assaulted by this man, and I can't describe how quickly I switched on the car. The only thing was that I started to hear sounds, and that was when I realized that my wife was far from being assaulted. It became clear that this man and my wife were making out in my daughter's room. Looking back, I'm still shocked at how rapidly my concern for her turned to a fiery hate. But I don't know why, I couldn't stop watching. At one point, I had the common sense to record my screen so I could have evidence of what was going on. I saw the man's hand go under her blouse and then soon after, try to take off her underwear. It was then that I heard her moan, and I literally watched as the man bent Naomi over the edge of the crib. I think it was then that I just tossed the phone aside. I wanted to scream and I wanted to punch something, but I had to keep my composure because my daughter was sleeping. But do you know how helpless I felt in that moment? I wanted to drive back home so badly. I wanted to go back there and hurt him and hurt her, but the only thing that held me back from doing something very stupid was my baby. Was that the reason why she asked me to take the baby along? Was this what happens every time she asks me to take the baby with me? Would she have done it even if our daughter was still at home? My wife and another man were being intimate in my daughter's room, and that was the part that disgusted me the most, to a level that I struggle to actually describe. By the time I picked up my phone again, the room was empty. I honestly didn't know what to do and I sat down in the car until my daughter woke up. By then, most of the places I was supposed to go to had closed and I literally only had one errand left that I could run. I don't know why, but I still went ahead to do it. I think I needed something to take my mind off it because I knew the alternative was me going home and I was genuinely scared of what might happen if I went before I got my head on right. Eventually, I went back home, and while she was concerned about me getting back home so late, I made up some stupid excuses that she bought. I really wanted to confront her but I had to use every ounce of my self-control not to because my emotions were way too charged. I waited till she went to sleep and I sat in the living room until daytime. This is where I really need help because I'm freaking losing my mind. This was 2 days ago and I've been struggling not to completely tear into her, especially because I have the advantage of evidence. She noticed the baby monitor yesterday and I told her that I had just bought it so that she wouldn't suspect that I was onto her. Again, I'm still so disgusted that she did that in our baby's room and I also don't know how to express how shocking it was to see things play out that way, especially since I had no idea whatsoever that she was being unfaithful. I wouldn't have guessed it in a million years. I think I'm going to confront her about it, but I really want to be assured that's the best move to make. I want to hear what you all have to say because I'm in the worst position to be making logical decisions right now. Everything I do will be completely fueled by emotion and I want to avoid that. So let loose, even if it's to call me a fool for not rushing back home right away. Edit 1. Okay, so yes, I might be a fool for not rushing home right away, as many of you are pointing out. But honestly, not only was I not in the right mental place to be confronted with my wife and her affair partner, but I had my daughter with me and I think it wouldn't have been smart for me to take her into such a dangerous atmosphere. My daughter held me back from doing anything stupid at that moment and I'm still thankful for that because she could have gotten hurt if things went out of control. Edit 2. So the general consensus seems to be that I should confront her already and stop wasting time. So yes, that's what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it tomorrow morning. I can't keep this inside me for any longer. And I also saw some people saying that I should check her phone, but that part will be hard. Her smartphone is almost always on her. I think it is better for me to come at her straight, so that's what I'll do. Update 1. So, I'm back with an update on the story where I caught my wife cheating on the baby monitor. I confronted her about it and it feels good to have been able to let out all that emotional baggage, but I'm also very hurt by the entire thing. Let me try my best to recap what happened. That morning, when Naomi woke up, I gave her about an hour before I asked her to sit down so that we could talk. She seemed worried and kept asking me if something was wrong, but I didn't say anything in response to that. I started off by telling her when I had bought the baby monitor, but she just looked at me confused. I said nothing and she only replied with a drawled okay. Then, I told her that the baby monitor was already operational on the day that I ran errands. She still looked at me confused and I really didn't want to say anything. I was simply just looking at her and I could see the exact moment that she mentally recollected what happened that day. She jumped up slightly in her seat out of shock and she covered her mouth. We sat there, her mouth covered like that, for probably a full minute. I could see that she was struggling trying to figure out what to say, but I really didn't want to give her the opportunity to rehearse something, so I asked her, "Why did you cheat on me with that guy?" She started to cry and she kept trying to speak through it, which was making her entirely unintelligible. I asked the question again and the same thing happened. She didn't have a real answer to the question, quite obviously. She couldn't use the female favorite "you were never around," because I was always around. I continued my question and I asked her who the man was. At that point, she started to sob even louder and it was pissing me off. This went on for almost 10 minutes before she finally started to calm down. I asked the question again, and it took her 2 minutes of shaking and burying her head in her palms before she spoke. "He's nobody important. He was important enough to be able to get in your panties. He's just some guy who came by the store. He wanted to buy flowers for his..." I already knew what the next word was, but I waited for her to finish. "For his wife." I laughed at that because not only was she cheating on me with some nobody in my daughter's room, but she was also messing around with a married man as a married woman herself. It actually disgusted me. There's no other word that I can use to describe it. I asked her what his name was. First, she said she didn't know, but I told her that was a lie. I knew that she knew at least his first name, if not both names. Eventually, she told me his name and I made a very solid mental note of that. Let's call him John Carpenter, for fun. It was a more unique name than that though. Then, the last question I asked was, "Why did you have to do something so disgusting in our daughter's room? Do you have no morals?" I mean, obviously not, but I still had to ask her. It was infuriating every time that I thought about it. She didn't say anything and I was honestly shocked by the next thing that she said, and it is still as bafflingly stupid now as it was then. You didn't even wait for me to say yes to a baby monitor." I blew up at her. "So now it's my fault? Because if I didn't buy the baby monitor, you would still be able to have sex with a man in our daughter's room right against her crib? I'm the villain because you were cheating with somebody who just happened to buy flowers in your store? A man with a wife? And you're boiling this down to me buying a baby monitor without asking you? You're pathetic." Yeah, after that, she started to sob again and I felt a lot better. I didn't feel back to normal because it's hard to feel okay again so quickly after something like what I had gone through goes down, but yeah, it felt like some weight off my shoulders. For now, I've kicked Naomi out of the house and I don't know how to proceed. I know a divorce is a must, but somehow, it really isn't enough for me. I need to do more and hurt her beyond that. I just need help figuring out the best way that I can potentially do that, so I'm open to all the suggestions that I can get. Update 2, I'm back, months after the fact, and I'm the happiest that I have been in a very long time. I was the guy who made the post about my wife Naomi, who I caught cheating on me thanks to a baby monitor that I bought. I'm glad to bring you all one new update, and what should be the final one in this entire story. I knew that I wanted to hurt Naomi badly, so I read through all the comments on my previous post and I took my sweet time to formulate a plan. The first thing that I went for was the divorce. That was easy. My close friend's wife is a divorce attorney and she's freaking good at what she does, so I enlisted her services the same day that I confronted Naomi. I had the video evidence of her cheating and I was told that it was going to come in useful for the trial. The fact that she had asked me to take the baby that day also showed that she had planned to cheat, and it was very likely not the first time either. When the divorce papers were ready, I specifically gave out Naomi's work address, which is that same corner shop that I lent to her to use for her business. I wanted her to be embarrassed, and while I wasn't there to watch her get served, I hoped that it was a bad look for her and the customers that must have been there at the time. She called me the same day that she was served, begging that we talk things over. I told her there was literally nothing for us to talk about because she wouldn't have anything more to say to me than several sorry's, and that was the last thing that I wanted to hear. When it was time for the divorce proceedings to begin, the first thing that her lawyer wanted to go for was the store. Its ownership transferred to me after my uncle died, and that was the asset that she was fighting tooth and nail for. We had a car, though not a fantastic one, and we rented an apartment. That was clearly the most valuable thing we owned between the two of us, and I think that was very clear to the judge as well. In fact, that was the one thing that I knew I had to have. My lawyer, bless her soul, really drove home not only how disgusting my wife cheating so soon after having our first child was, but all the other aspects that made it worse, like the location, the premeditation, and the fact that this probably wasn't the first time. She said that giving her that corner store would be like rewarding her bad behavior, and that wouldn't set a good example. End of the day, I got it all, though I gave up the car since I was keeping the apartment. The judge said that it would help with coming to pick up or drop off the child. The custody part didn't go as nicely as I would have wanted since we ended up with joint custody, but it's fine. I also don't need to pay her a dime, because thankfully, in my state, her infidelity was allowed to play a major part in the judgment. Here's the part that was finally able to heal my wounds. Remember John Carpenter? The man that my ex-wife cheated on me with? I found him on Facebook. It took me 2 minutes to find his wife, and I messaged her. I explained the whole situation, including the fact that I had explicit footage of her husband and my wife, and she said she was interested in seeing it, since she didn't believe me at first. She certainly believed me after. I had to do a lot of consoling, but it seems like things are going to hit the rocks on that side of the sea, and that makes me happy. Poor her though. She'll end up better off eventually, at least, like I have. The next thing was me letting my ex-wife know that she had 30 days to vacate the store. I walked into the store and told her this face to face, over a month after we divorced, because I wanted her to let her guard down, and it worked beautifully. She cried and even offered to start paying rent for the spot, but I said no. My eventual plan was to rent the place out, but I absolutely refused to make her my tenant. Nah, I needed to make sure that her lovely shop was no more. Sure, she could carry her brand elsewhere, but at least then she'd need to pay a lot to make it work, and that is fine by me. As I type this, that store is vacant and I'm looking for a proper paying tenant. Her IG page still says that the store is closed indefinitely for renovation, but I'm glad that I know that's a lie. She's trying to save face, but it's not working very well, as it is now very evident that the physical location is no more. She's called me about 3 times in the past month simply to ask me to forgive her and let her use the store again, but I'm not swaying on that. Not at all, and it makes me glad. This is really the happiest I've been in a while, and it sucks it has to come through revenge, but it is what it is. I'm glad I got to hit back at her in the end, and I'm glad it is hurting her just a fraction of the amount that it hurt me. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Volunteered at a charity shop for months and ran it alone, but when I applied for a paid job, they gave it to the boss's friend's daughter and offered me an unpaid promotion instead. I've been volunteering in a charity shop since about August last year. I initially started to get myself back into a routine and work ready for being out of work for so long. I really enjoyed it and it's given me so much confidence. Unfortunately, the manager had to take sick leave because she needs an operation. The assistant manager handed in her keys and quit because no one from the other stores would come in and help her cover a day for her, so she was basically doing everything. The shop had to close for a while till they found someone else. When they did, I came straight back because I had started to fall backwards in myself and needed the routine again. The new, floating manager, let's call Mary, is 19 and had no idea how to run the shop. Her mom is the company's customs manager for this area. She is also best friends with another lady who runs one of the other shops. She has 2 daughters, one is running another shop. This is not a family-run business. At first it was very unwelcoming and they changed how we worked. I gave it time because obviously she's new to this and doesn't really talk to anyone. Eventually over time we became friendly, work well together and have a laugh. A new assistant manager had been hired who is absolutely amazing and we get on very well. He has recently gone to another one of the stores to run it as manager. His job became available so I asked about applying. Mary got really excited and wanted me to apply. She helped me with interview questions, gave me the opportunity to run the shop for a few days completely on my own, which went very well. At first she wasn't doing the interviews, it was her mom and someone else. When it came closer I got informed that her and her mom was interviewing me. I got excited because I thought I was a shoo-in as Mary had expressed if she could pick then it would be me. A day before, I found out that the lady's other daughter was applying too. I knew from then on it didn't matter what I said or did I wouldn't be getting it because they are all very close. Mary's mom rang me to say I didn't get it the other girl did, making out it was some random women, even though I know it's the daughter, but that I did very well and they wanted to make me lead volunteer. I have been there for months, run it on my own, cashed up, opened up, everything. I know how to run it better than Mary does. I want to leave because I feel like I've been screwed over. I'm going to complain to the higher up because I feel it's unfair to basically say I have the job, but then give it to your best friend's daughter. Comments, Rare Selection 2348, don't bother complaining. Don't bother going in again. NTA Magdovus, don't bother telling them. Let them work it out for themselves. Old_web 8071, complaining probably won't do any good. Best bet is to walk away and find a job that pays. Or some other charity until you do. And don't give a notice. At the end of a day, just say, I'm not coming back to work here and leave. Preferably when you know they will be shorthanded because other people are already taking off. It's up to you if you want to give them a notice or reason you're leaving. Me? I'd just say I'm not coming back. Foolish Pleasure 99, yes, don't complain, leave. Any notice up to you. They will quickly learn nepotism is not a management strategy, will suffer, and will cover that all up or chalk it up to learning on the job. I do not see anyone reaching out to admit they made a mistake and if you stay you're just a doormat and will have to run the place without pay or recognition. Update, thank you for all your messages. I didn't expect anyone to reply. I left, I went in and it was really awkward, so when I finished for the day I told Mary this is my last day. She was shocked and didn't really know what to say. I walked out knowing that most of the other volunteers will probably leave soon too. Either for paying jobs or because they are getting annoyed with how it's run. I'm also going to tell the higher ups about it because I don't want them to get away with it. It's not the first time and someone in the comments pointed out that corporate might not know what is going on and it's not fair to anyone. Comments, Cabrisha 9, Mary must be really dense if she's shocked. Anklebiter 42, you'd be surprised at how stupid people like this can be. Either that or she thinks she's manipulating op salt lavishness 7560. Of course she's shocked. I mean they were going to make op the head volunteer. I can't believe op is throwing away that kind of opportunity. Screw that money. Everyone should be scrambling for those unpaid volunteer hours. /S Stephen Allen 1977. Honesty, this was the best course of action for you. If you are in the UK it does not sound like there was a fair recruitment process given that there was favoritism to someone who did not have experience. Utah Cyan, Nepo hires. Happens everywhere. They usually end up in disaster, but you have to wait for the disaster for anything you change. Deleted, if it's a large company they will not happy that a relatively nothing person, the mother, is pissing up good people for her little Nepo babies. Fries with shake booty, even though I know this happens, it still makes me angry. Hi, person who knows how to run the store. We decided the better candidate is the person who knows nothing. However, we'd like to give you a sparkly title and more responsibilities, zero pay. Cool, right? Fries_Fox_9163, they're trying to protect their backs. They needed someone else applying so they could say they followed the proceedings and selected the best applicant. In this case, as Oop was highly qualified, if the nepotist protege was selected she must be a great candidate. So Mary cast the bait and Oop bit it. And OFC they wanted to give Oop some crumbs, they didn't want to lose her. Mpisketti, Oop was already giving them maximum effort for nothing, they weren't ever going to pay her. Dave024, yay, most of the comments seem to be glancing over the fact she was just volunteering there. It's not surprising a business wouldn't want to give up an employee that was working there for nothing.